Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at a source that is, well, it's just as profound as it is heartbreaking. It's a narrative that presents the lives of two very different women in Sri Lanka, Latha and Biso.
And what's so exceptional about this source is how it gives us this almost surgical look into two completely separate worlds, socially, geographically separate, but within the same country.
Right. And yet, both women are locked in this relentless struggle for some kind of autonomy.
Exactly. They're pushing against these rigid class systems, political chaos, and, the inescapable burden of being a woman in a place where the rules are just stacked against you.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Our mission today is to really synthesize these dense narratives. We're not just summarizing a plot. We want to extract the structural meaning from the specifics. So on one side, we have Latha. She's a domestic worker. And her world is, it's claustrophobic. It's defined by this relentless display of luxury in wealthy Colombo 7.
And that proximity to wealth fuels this desperate, almost toxic social ambition in her.
And then, on the complete other side of the coin, you have Biso.
Biso is all about flight. Pure, purposeful flight. She's a mother who's running from just acute domestic violence, political violence, and she's carrying this shadow of a past tragedy.
Her escape is a physical journey, right? Taking her away from the coast, the south, and into the hill country.
That's right. So we're going to analyze the tiny details that define their worlds. Everything from the social rituals and status symbols that oppress Latha to the violent conflicts that force Biso into these terrible sacrifices.
And I think crucially, we have to look at what their very different fates reveal about the real cost of survival in a society that, well, just rejects inconvenient truths.
Let's start with Latha. Her story is a fascinating, almost clinical study in how aspiration can become a weapon.
A weapon?
Yeah, a weapon she directs both at herself, inward and outward at the family she serves. Her entire existence is just defined by being close to a wealth she can never, ever touch.
The sources establish this class divides so immediately. It's almost theatrical the way it's laid out. And it starts with that 3.3 p.m. ritual at the well.
That daily ritual is so critical because you have to understand it's a moment of stolen identity for her.
Stolen identity, how so?
She keeps this specific piece of stolen Lux soap. It's pink, it's heavily fragranced, just for this time of day. And she's not just using it to get clean, it's a sensory escape. The scent is described as the idea of roses.
And that idea of roses isn't just some random luxury. It's tied to a very specific, very potent memory.
Yes, it links all the way back to this one single perfect trip she took with the Vithanage family when she was just a little girl, maybe 5 or 6. They went to the Hagala Gardens.
And that's where she saw real roses. She understood the difference between what was genuinely beautiful and what was, just synthetic. So the soap is this daily attempt to get that feeling back.
But the memory just evaporates. The moment the well water washes the scent and the bubbles into the grass, it's gone. That vanishing act, that daily failure to hold on to the dream, it just perfectly captures her whole emotional state.
So she gets up and immediately starts fantasizing about being a teledrama heroine.
Exactly. Beautiful, wronged, but in the end, victorious. It's all about rewriting her reality.
And this desire for status, it's not abstract at all. It gets really intense around consumer goods. And the most powerful symbol the source highlights is footwear. Shoes. Why shoes?
In this context, footwear is the visible physical line. It's the divider. Latha literally sees shoes as, and this is a quote, what set the blessed apart from the unspared.
Wow.
So her own attempts at elevating herself, and she does this in private, polishing her feet with cooking oil and a smooth stone she keeps by the well, they're completely useless. You can't polish servitude away.
No. And it only highlights the power of what she calls real brand new footwear.
And I think that moment with the cobbler just drives the point home. This is a man she's used for years to fix the family's old, discarded slippers.
Right. But this last time, when she asks him to paste a sole back on, he calls her Dua daughter and offers her a few coins for sweets.
That gesture of pity, coming from a man who is himself so marginal, it's the final humiliation for her. She realizes her life is so small that even the people who serve the poor are pitying her.
And that's the moment she decides she has to buy brand new in-style shoes. That is her goal.
It becomes her obsession. The cobbler represents the very class she needs to escape.
Which brings us to the money, the financial reality of it all. She's worked for them for 10 years, not counting the first 2 years when she was basically an unpaid child.
And she does the math. She calculates she should have 11,700 rupees in the bank.
Which, in her world, is a huge amount of money.
It's a fortune. but it's completely inaccessible. When she timidly asks Mrs. Vithanage for the money to buy sandals, the very symbol of her ambition, she's just dismissed.
Mrs. Vithanage uses that patronizing, controlling voice, right? Telling her the money is safer in the bank.
It's not financial advice. It's a weapon of control. Latha learns in that moment that her wages aren't for her advancement. They're just a tool to keep her psychologically chained to them.
And that realization, that's what sparks her first little acts of rebellion.
Yeah.
She's tired of just yearning. She hates, and the source says this specifically, plain tea and plain anything.
Because plainness is her assigned class status. Her life is supposed to be unflavored, unfragranced, unadorned.
So her rebellion is measured in condiments.
Exactly. Her theft is a rebellion measured in condiments. She steals the Lux soup, of course, but also little teaspoons of mango jam.
Right, scooped quickly onto her tongue while she carries the bottle to the table.
And milk powder for her tea. These aren't about survival. They're stolen sensory indulgences. It's about maintaining her dignity by refusing the plain life she's been given. It's a quiet war waged with teaspoons.
And this private war gets so much more complicated when you look at her relationship with Thara, the daughter of the house.
Oh, absolutely. Because Thara's life seems so privileged, but in its own way, she is just as confined by the rigid rules of her elite social circle.
She completely rejects the traditional matchmaker system, the kapua.
She does, because she says it only brings uglets with cowcatcher teeth to the house. She has this cold, pragmatic checklist for a husband. It's not about love, it's a map of how social exclusion works in elite Colombo.
And the checklist is so specific. A Colombo 7 address is best, then Colombo 3. Then you get race, religion, caste, school, and only then, looks.
It's social geometry disguised as romance. The address, race, religion, caste, that's all for her parents, to make sure the man is someone they can stand. The last two are for her.
This makes those early shared moments between Latha and Thara even more poignant, you know?
They share these innocent intimacies of girlhood, giggling about Mrs. Vithanage's enormous wet bra, using it to puff out their own chests.
But those moments of pseudo-sisterhood, they're just shattered by biology in class. When Thara gets her first period, that red smudge, the whole dynamic just violently shifts.
Thara is immediately sequestered, elevated to this new status, and Latha is just instantly, brutally relegated back to her role as the subordinate.
And Latha realizes it with this crushing finality. Thara wasn't a friend. She was a mistress in a family that wasn't a family but people who owned her.
The shared laughter is gone. But, and this is so interesting, Latha finds a kind of counterweapon in her own self-perception, rooted in all her suffering.
She becomes convinced that her deep longings, all that suppressed desire, have ripened her looks into a luminous, irresistible heat.
A raw beauty she believes a girl of privilege like Thara could never possess. She's reframing her pain as a kind of aesthetic power. Thara's prettiness is inherited and brittle. Her own beauty, she thinks, is forged in fire.
It's a moment of self-reclamation, but it's also, it's precarious, isn't it? She's exchanging one kind of servitude for another.
She is. She's moving from domestic servitude to a transactional reliance on her own desirability. But at least for her, the second form feels self-directed.
And that perceived power, it immediately translates into this calculated act of retribution. She targets Ajith, Thara's first boyfriend. This wasn't passion. This was warfare.
100%. The source notes her complete emotional detachment. She was actually interested in Ajith's friend, Gehan, but that desire just flew up into the mango trees and hung out of reach. She had to pretend the rest of the way, focusing only on the vengeance.
So this is her first real move, using her agency to inflict deliberate, damaging harm on the family that owns her.
And the consequence is banishment. But she doesn't run. She's sent to the convent, and this convent interlude, it gives her this brief, almost terrifying sense of safety, but it's also where institutional control is just laid bare.
The nuns are very practical. They've seen it all before. Latha just becomes entry number 193 in a binder.
And she's given these tasks: kneeling, standing, praying, and sewing endless doll clothes in pale colors. The routine at first feels almost like a holiday from the stress of the Vithanage house.
But the institutional trauma is swift and total. Her baby, who's only ever referred to as the infant, is just silently removed.
She's left with only stitches in her vagina, the sound of things ending, and the silence she would not give up. The implication is just devastating. The state, through the church, conspires with these elite families to erase the consequences of their actions.
Specifically, erasing motherhood for the servant class.
And when she tries to smell roses again after this, it's useless. The scent now only reminds her of the bile she vomited during pregnancy and the feeling of her body being used and twisted and turned inside out and abandoned.
So this trauma, it basically prepares her for a purely transactional future.
It does. Which brings us to Daniel, the foreigner. Her relationship with him is all about temporary identity theft. She uses his apartment to escape her reality.
And his apartment is the complete aesthetic opposite of the Vithanage house.
It is. It's vibrant, modern, foreign. Thick curtains, soft lamps, these huge black and white photos on the walls. And she's drawn to the colors. A dark blue mattress on a brilliant orange carpet. It looked like fire when the lamps were on.
She would lie there and just let the orange color enter her body and light her up, just trying to sustain the illusion that she was a real girl with a real home.
But the illusion just crashes when she tells Daniel she's pregnant. His reaction is purely clinical. He arranges an abortion, calling it a womb wash.
But Latha knows the Sinhala term, Nathakirima.
And an end to being, which is so much closer to the emotional truth of the violence being done to her.
And Daniel's final callousness is that flash of disgust when she vomits outside his car. His only concern is washing his hands of it all. He calls her pregnancy a second indictment of her character.
Latha's final assessment of him is chillingly pragmatic. Daniel was like Ajith, just lighter-skinned.
And that's the moment she reclaims herself. She leaves his money, the pads, everything. She takes only herself away from the past. She's been through it all now. She's hard, she's calculating, and she is ready to choose her own path.
It's a profound shift, and if Latha's entire life is about trying to steal dignity through ambition, Biso's life is about this brutal fight for dignity through physical, desperate flight.
Exactly. So let's flip that coin. We're moving from the ambition of Colombo 7 to the raw survival of the hill country.
Biso's story is such a powerful counterpoint. It's fundamentally about the consequences of political tragedy crashing into domestic abuse. Her escape isn't about wanting better shoes, it's pure necessity, survival.
And her abusive marriage was arranged. The husband was wealthy, he owned a large boat, but he was low caste. And that's the key, isn't it?
It is the absolute key. His malignance, his violence, it all comes from his own self-loathing. He beats her because he can't forgive himself for marrying beneath them.
He's constantly comparing himself to Siri, her murdered lover, and to Biso herself, her better caste, my better upbringing.
Exactly. His violence is a constant attempt to assert control over a social hierarchy that he feels she represents and he resents.
And this political backstory with Siri is essential to understanding the fear that defines Biso's world.
Siri was involved in a political movement to bring the Lady Prime Minister back into power. This was a time of intense political unrest. The military and the parties were aligning and then turning on each other.
It created this environment in the South that was just defined by danger. Informants everywhere, the police were completely untrustworthy.
And Biso knew the risk. She'd meet Siri by the boats late at night, sometimes bringing him tea, almost wanting to put herself in danger so her other imprudence, their affair, would somehow escape notice.
The source even says she found a kind of liberation in that world. Being with Siri's monk friend, Ravatha Sadhu, without having to be devout, she felt a thrill in that radical, unsanctioned life.
But that life ended violently. Siri and his friends went into hiding after the army shifted its allegiance. He came back limping and bleeding, only to be killed later. A knife in his back. He died in Biso's arms, right there by the boats.
A tragedy born of political betrayal. And yet Biso says that during that 1 year with him, she was finally her true self.
She says, I had 1 year in which I got to be a woman. Not a daughter, not a wife, not a mother. That year of radical, dangerous love was her true life.
And here we have to insert this crucial, really somber piece of context. We learn later from Mr. Vithanage that Biso commits suicide. She sets herself on fire and throws herself in front of a train.
And we need to carry that knowledge with us as we follow her journey. We have to see her physical escape not as this triumphant move towards safety, but as a doomed flight from a predetermined end.
It just heightens the sense of tragedy. Every obstacle, every moment of foreboding is leading toward this ultimate act of self-immolation.
Yes. And her physical escape is planned with this intense, meticulous detail defined by scarcity. Months before she leaves, she starts saving every single cent. She switches the children from SR toothpaste to Danthaboost the tooth powder.
That tiny detail, the tooth powder, that's the currency of her freedom. It shows how every single part of their lives had to be negotiated to afford this escape.
And her preparation of the meals for the journey. It's this ritual of stealth and survival. She uses their last dried red chilies for the sample, makes these 4 mounds of hot rice with hard-dried salted fish inside.
She uses plantain leaves, holding them over the fire to make them waxy and dark, silent wrappers.
Yeah.
And she slashes the karumba, the young coconuts, for the sweet water. It's just this profound act of mothering under extreme duress.
And the children, they're veterans of this violence. They wake at her touch with practiced stealth. They follow her like small ghosts. They're used to being quiet about their unmet needs.
There's a difference between them, though. The older daughter, Lokudua, is timid, but the younger one, Chutidua,
Siri's daughter. She is lean and strong and peculiarly capable, reflecting her unsanctioned origins.
as they journey up toward her aunt's house in Ohio, the environment just completely shifts. They leave the heat and conflict of the coast for the lush green cleanliness of the hill country.
This change of scenery symbolizes a kind of potential purity. Ice-cold brooks, the Dialuma waterfall, the tea estates. But even this landscape has a social shadow. Baiso remembers her own mother criticizing the Tamil estate workers for sending their children away to be servants.
The specter of Latha's life is already present in Biso's sanctuary.
It is. And the train journey itself just reinforces this sense of foreboding. Baiso literally holds her breath as the train goes over these deep drops, expecting divine punishment to strike them down for breaking the rules by fleeing her husband.
And the stop in Nuwalapiti to attach the pusher engine.
The second locomotive they need for the steep climb up country. It's such a powerful metaphor. The difficulty of their ascent to safety requires this immense, unnatural, added force. They are literally fighting against the gravity of their own fate.
Once on the train, she runs into these external calamities that just highlight the social machinery working against women who step outside the home. It starts with this horrific sight on the tracks.
They see a mother and 2 children, all in white, lying dead on the tracks, mangled by the train. The woman is wearing the candian osaria, this respectful, traditional drape that signifies dignity.
And a vendor on the train immediately starts spreading the accepted, convenient lie.
The manufactured rumor that the woman committed murder-suicide because she was caught having an affair with her husband's brother. It maintains the social order. The violence is explained away by female transgression.
But Biso, who understands real ugly violence, she counters it. She saw 4 sets of shoes, Bortello bottles, remnants of a meal. She knows the father did it.
And she says it forcefully. He poisoned them. He poisoned them first. It is he who did it.
And her honest, painful truth is just met with this instant collective rejection. The crowd doesn't feel sympathy. They blame her. They blame her for an untended basket she left nearby, accusing her of maybe planting a bomb.
She is instantly condemned. She's bathed in this contagious misfortune just for daring to challenge the male narrative about that dead family.
The police check that follows. The train stopping because of a bomb rumor in an old man's bun basket. It feels like structural punishment for her honesty.
And she realizes that her earlier kindness buying snacks for the children from that very vendor is what saved the old man, who gave her the snacks instead of keeping his basket. But protesting her good karma is useless. She's now publicly cast as a villain just for being a woman alone, speaking an unwelcome truth.
And this profound injustice, it just forces her hand, leading her towards these final, difficult choices.
Yes. Her long journey culminates not in some chase or confrontation, but in a simple domestic accident that shatters her already precarious world.
Her son, Raji, falls and breaks his leg trying to catch a moon moth.
And in this twist of fate, these foreign men, the Sudas, they arrive immediately in a vintage VW, offering a quick ride to the hospital. It is a moment of salvation and profound humiliation all at once.
Biso is forced to beg. She has to use this deferential voice. "You will be blessed if you can just get me to the hospital."
She even tries to make an offering. She slips off her gold bangles, the last symbol of her old life, her marriage. But the driver just refuses them.
And he refuses with contempt. He spits out this reprimand that just perfectly captures the judgment she faces.
"I told you to take the money, and you didn't want to, foolish woman. Now see, now you have to beg." It's a spiritual slap. He's implying her high-mindedness is what caused her son's suffering.
She's standing there realizing they'll only take the injured boy, not her. She has to accept it. And this is where her older daughter, Lokudua, steps up.
Lokudua shows this enforced maturity. She insists on going with her brother. "I'm old enough, I can look after him."
And that sacrifice breaks Biso's heart. She realizes she'd always favored her youngest, Chutidua, the child of her true love. but Lokodua's quiet practicality is the only asset the family has in this moment.
So Besso accepts the separation, and her focus shifts immediately to securing her last child. She takes Dua to the Stone Convent in Hatton.
The very same structure Latha had been banished to years before. It represents this unassailable, if very cold, safety.
The final goodbye is just heartbreaking. Basso tells the child to stay and be good, and as she gets in the taxi to leave, she tells the driver, "I have no money, I have no children."
She is performing her own death, stripping herself of her identity as a mother, preparing for that final act of self-immolation.
But Dua shows this resilience. She's holding the bright blue rosary beads the nun gave her, this small piece of hope, and crucially, she's still seen peering down the road looking for her mother. The mother has ended her identity. The daughter still has hope.
So if Basso chose self-destruction to protect her children, Latha, having returned from her own trauma, chooses self-construction. She harnesses her pain and focuses it back in Colombo.
Yes, Letha gets back to work quickly. She positions herself strategically near Thara's husband, Gehan. She deliberately uses her youthfulness and the presence of the young houseboy, Podian, to get Gehan's attention.
Gehan is bored, he's weary, he starts spending more time in her orbit, and Latha's internal thoughts now are pure, focused ambition.
She dreams that the house and everything in it, especially its owner, Gehan, belongs to her. She's using the lessons she learned from Daniel and Ajith. Her body is a tool for social mobility.
She starts leaning a little lower when she serves his tea, letting her hair fall loose to invite his touch. And this controlled flirtation, it all culminates in this final violent confrontation when Thara's parents return.
Thara accuses Latha of destroying the family's reputation, of sleeping with Podian, the houseboy who's young enough to be her son.
And Gehan, at first, he defends her. She's a human being. But then Mrs. Vithanage reveals Latha is pregnant, a consequence of her transactional life she'd been hiding.
And a silence just falls. Gehan, faced with the shame, the judgment of his family, he just turns his body away from Latha. She's instantly outside the circle, betrayed one last time.
Thara accuses her of forgetting their pseudo-sisterhood, the trust she had with her children.
But Latha is beyond shame now. This is the moment she unleashes her truth, all her accumulated anger with this furious clarity. She attacks Thara's hypocrisy.
You kept me because I was a way for you to show how little you thought of your husband.
She reveals the truth. You didn't have time for them, you gave them to me. And that Thara had wanted sons with Ajith, not with Gehan.
Then comes this definitive, symbolic act of purging. Latha deliberately sweeps everything off the dining table. Curries, glasses, the cut glass flower bowl, all of it to the floor.
And she walks to the cabinet and smashes the expensive wedding dishes, and she says, "Now all your bad karma is gone. You can start again." It's an unrepentant, ritualistic break. She's transferring the bad karma of that house onto the broken porcelain.
She leaves with deliberation. She's not running away. She knows she can survive. I know how to live in the city. I have money.
And Podian, the traumatized orphan houseboy, is drawn to her after Gehan whips him. And Latha accepts him. He becomes her companion, her surrogate child.
Her final choice is radical. A self-constructed family of survivors. They get on the night mail train to Hatton, which is now a place of self-determination for her, not banishment.
She throws Daniel's note with the money away, affirming her own control, and whispers her new intention. We will be a proper family. It's a future defined by an unsanctioned alliance.
So when we synthesize these two final destinies, the contrast is so stark, but it's built on the exact same foundation of structural violence. Beso chooses safety for her last child through sacrifice at the convent and ultimately self-immolation on the tracks. Her journey was this slow, painful surrender.
While Latha, conversely, chooses to build this new unconventional family with Podian, she's determined to succeed with her wits. She transforms every single instance of abuse and loss, the stolen soap, the erased baby, the transactional affairs, into fuel for her own survival. It's radical self-creation.
And the sources constantly highlight the price of truth in this society. Both women, at key moments, they try to speak a painful, inconvenient reality. Latha revealing Thara's hypocrisy.
And Beso confronting the vendor about the father who poisoned his family. And in both cases, the truth is just violently rejected. Society prefers the convenient lie.
The servant is treacherous. The woman commits suicide due to infidelity.
Because the truth would require acknowledging systemic male violence and class exploitation. And this is what forces both women to find survival and even love only outside of sanctioned marriages, sanctioned homes, sanctioned stories.
Right. Beso realized that unsanctioned unions, like the one she had with Siri, are the only kind that allow love to take us by her hand. And Latha's final choice to form a family with a traumatized houseboy, it's a deliberate echo of that same truth. They're creating their own sanctuary.
So we circle back to the central idea of karma, a concept both women invoke. If Letha's final act of smashing the dishes was her trying to ritually purge the bad karma for the family that owned her, and Biso's life ended when she realized she just could not outrun the structural violence that punished her, then we're left with a pretty provocative question for you, the learner.
Both women, despite their profoundly different methods, ended up outside the accepted bounds of society to find any kind of peace or safety. Biso's path leads to a permanent, terrible peace achieved through self-destruction. Latha's leads to an uncertain but self-directed future built on theft and calculation. So what has this revealed about the possibility of redemption versus reclamation in a world where structural violence is so pervasive it dictates the very nature of a woman's sacrifice? Is temporary respite the best we can hope for, or is Latha's radical alliance a genuinely sustainable model for survival?
That is certainly a dense thread to pull. Until our next deep dive, keep questioning the surfaces and digging for the structural insights beneath.